Well, I am here. All NEC Defensive Player of the Year, honorable All-American mention, Will Mark out of LIU. Will, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. I'd love to hear the story about how you first got involved in lacrosse.
Yeah, no, definitely. So it's a little unorthodox compared to a lot of people, but when I was growing up around, I think it was first through fifth grade, we lived overseas in Germany. So right around that time, my dad started a little lacrosse club. I mean, it wasn't too big. I think it was like three kids at that time. Obviously, no goalie, no positions. We're kind of just going at it. So that's really kind of got like my first little taste. And then fast forward a couple of years, we moved to Danville, California, where we are now. And I was kind of given the option, you know what I mean, as every kid is at that age. I mean, you're going to either play baseball, lacrosse. And I just remember being like, baseball is way too boring for me. Like, there's absolutely there's no place for me there. So, yeah, I mean, I ended up playing lacrosse that year, my fifth grade year. Halfway through, both of our goalies had some injuries. So, I mean, that's where kind of I stepped up and got started with the position. I mean, yeah, the rest is history. I mean, I've absolutely fallen in love with just position and just being able to kind of like be your own and kind of craft your technique. And obviously, like I was saying earlier with the YouTube videos, just being able to watch someone else and kind of learn instantly from just a little 30-second clip. And I mean, yeah, I mean that's pretty much how I started out, and those were the beginnings.
Yeah. Now, did your dad play lacrosse? Like, what was his interest in lacrosse?
Yeah, so he grew up on the East Coast,
Okay.
kind of moving up and down. So he's always been around the sport, obviously, as anyone is growing up on the East. So he's always been super interested in it, but he's never really played. So I think he was kind of hoping I played just so he could experience the game more and kind of be around it more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's like I've never really had anyone kind of older than me. Obviously, my dad and my little brother to kind of show me the ropes. So it was a lot of YouTube, a lot of just kind of learning the game. And I mean, it took years before I kind of like felt comfortable just with, you know what I mean? Like, especially in California with it being so new. I mean, everyone's learning together. So it definitely took a couple of years before I was comfortable. And I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to talk about that because I'm from the Bay Area. I'm from Santa Rosa, just an hour or so away from Danville. And when I grew up, I graduated high school in '99. I mean, there was no lacrosse. Like if you took a lacrosse stick out, like people would be like, what the heck is that? And since that time, it's really gotten pretty big in the Bay Area, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would say kind of our area or my area is a little bit of a hot spot. I mean, like in the past years, we've had, I mean, a ton of kids go play, I mean, big time like divisional ball. So yeah, I mean, I think we definitely in the most recent years have just been really up and coming in the lacrosse world, like sending a ton of kids to good travel teams, good schools.
Hmm.
I think boarding schools are kind of picking up in our area a little bit too. So you see like a ton of kids going to these different, you know what I mean, like knapsack boarding schools, Deerfield, Avon, Salisbury. So that's always good to see from the area.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's constantly getting better. A ton of good coaches too coming over from the East Coast, which is huge.
Right.
Um, Finally getting some good coaching around here. So
Yeah, that's
yeah.
awesome. That's just great to see the growth of the sport. I mean, worldwide, but also just in where we're from. So that's awesome. What high schools did you play, and like who were the good high schools?
Yeah, so I started out at Monte Vista, which is just a public school around here. So I was there for my freshman and sophomore year, and that's when I would transfer to boarding school. So I went over to Salisbury School in Connecticut,
Okay.
which is all boys. I mean, amazing lacrosse team, great coach, and Bobby Wynn. And I absolutely loved it. Yeah, I mean, I had some great experiences, met some lifelong friends. Obviously, I mean, unreal lacrosse. But yeah, I mean, it really just kind of prepared me for college. I mean, you don't really get that like kind of taste of being away and being independent and stuff until you're really doing it. So it definitely sets you up for success. Just the whole boarding school setup. And
Yeah.
then what were you saying, sorry?
No, no, go ahead.
Yeah, so after that, I was there for 2.5 years. So I repeated my sophomore year, and then I finished at a Proctor Academy in New Hampshire, which was also a great time. I mean, new environment and obviously new people and stuff too. So I
Yeah.
mean, I definitely got around in high school, and I mean, I met a ton of people and played a ton of good lacrosse. So no
Yeah.
complaints at all.
Yeah. Awesome. So going back to you're a youth. You're both the goalies on your team get hurt. I mean, what was it about the position that sort of attracted you? I mean, you maybe jumped in because the team needed a goalie, but there had to have been a moment where you're like, all right, cool, this is for me.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like a little bit of the challenge. You know what I mean? Like everyone is like goalie has such a stigma to it. You know what I mean? Like you got to be crazy to like hop in that. Like, you know what I mean? So, I mean, just the fact that people like didn't really want to do it made me want to be like, I want to be the best at this. You know what I mean? So,
Hmm.
yeah, and just like, I mean, kind of like I was young then too. So the fact that I got like my own coach and like I was like off to the side doing my own thing, I was like, this is sick. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? I've been like these like training sessions, like but yeah, I mean, I kind of just like fell in love with it instantly. I remember like the first game I went to, I think it was like the final score was like 9-1. I was absolutely feeling it. And so I went to my family. I was like, everyone's got to come the next game, like hands down, you guys got to come watch me. So yeah, it was just fun. Like, I mean, there's ups and downs too, like the highs and the lows. I mean, obviously that comes with goalie too. So there was definitely some points starting out where I was just like, I'm never playing this position again. You know what I mean? And someone as like
Yeah.
competitive as me, like I would just sit in the car and like not let anyone talk to me and just kind of get through it myself. So I mean, it's a really good experience, kind of learning to play goalie and growing up. But yeah, I mean, that's really how it started out for me.
Yeah. I think I read a story, or maybe I heard an interview that your dad actually didn't want you to be a goalie. Is that right?
Yeah,
Like why was that?
I mean, he just knew like kind of what comes with being a lacrosse goalie. Just you know what I mean, the bruises, like
Yeah.
the constant like fear of getting hit by the ball, and then kind of like getting over that. But I mean, at first, I mean, I think you probably saw in the U.S. lacrosse video.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, I mean, when I was walking out with the goalie stick that first day, he was like, "What in the world are you doing?" Um, but yeah, I absolutely loved it. Just like the special gear, the goalie gloves, like the coach, like, and then first and foremost the challenge too. Just yeah,
Yeah. And for me, like if you're playing on a team that's doing it the right way, I think the goalie gets this certain level of respect. Some teams
yeah,
don't do that, and that's a damn shame if you ask me. But teams that are doing it the right way, like the goalie's first in the handshake line, the goalie gets the hug after the game, the goalie gets these like special privileges because it is such a tough position, and I love that. I love that element. I don't know about you.
yeah. No, definitely. I mean, you said it too. Just like obviously front of the line for handshakes. I mean, everyone gets a goalie at the end of the game. So at the end of the day, like you know what I mean. You're the backbone, and you can control a game. You know what I mean. And you're able to win a game from the back of the net without even taking a shot. So
Yeah.
I mean, just having like the ability to do that just absolutely fires me up. And I didn't realize that until college, honestly, just how big of an impact the goalie is on a game, whether that's mental, whether that's the score of the game. You know what I mean? So I mean, it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you said, there's highs and lows. Like if you're not feeling it and you're the goalie, like there's nowhere to hide. Nowhere to
Yeah,
hide. Like if you're a short stick D midi, you're not having a good game. All right, cool. We'll send a slide a little bit earlier.
yeah,
Attackman, I'll give up the ball. I won't try and make plays, but nowhere to hide if you're the goalie. So we've got this tremendous responsibility. And it's great. Wouldn't have it any
yeah.
other way, right?
No, yeah, I could not have said it better. Honestly,
Yeah.
I mean, like as someone as competitive as me too, you can ask any of my coaches from Long Island University. I mean, it definitely took a lot of time of just working through kind of the frustration and anger of just, you know what I mean? Like when you're out there every single day, taking hundreds of shots a day, like obviously some are going to go in.
Hmm.
Which yeah, I mean, it's just such a hard battle, just kind of the winning and losing and being able to push through that. But yeah, like you said, like I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
Um,
How do
yeah.
you um how do you manage that competitiveness? So as a goalie, I mean, on a great day, you're saving, let's say, 6 out of 10 shots, right? So you're still giving up four. How do you manage that as someone who's like, God, I always want to win?
Yeah, I mean, that's like I just said, like that's the biggest thing that I've had to work through in college by far. It's just the mental game of the position.
Mm.
And having Jack Runkle as the assistant coach, who was, yeah, I think you've talked to him before. Having him on the sideline was just unreal. Just having someone that successful at the position, and you know what I mean, just being able to talk through situations with him, and like the highs and the lows. Like he was always there on the sideline, knowing what was going on in my head and having been through it before. So I mean, having that person on the sideline and in your corner is just, I mean, so huge at that level too. But like I said, yeah, it was one of the biggest things I've had to work through for sure. Especially when you're getting, I think I was getting like 50 shots a game. So
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm going to let some goals, but I mean, the biggest part is just looking at the end goal. You know what I mean? Like you're trying to get the win the whole entire time. So it's your job to just stay focused and let the bad ones go. I mean, focus on the next shot, and yeah. But I think the biggest thing for me though is kind of how much goalies changed me as a person. You know what I mean? Like kind of dealing with these different situations and having patience and being able to kind of get through to someone and talk to them, and also like lead a team, lead a defense, and be someone you can look up to. I mean, there's so many aspects that go into it, and being a positive person, like, I mean, you can pull a lot of those out and they'll make you a better person on a day-to-day basis. So
Yeah, totally. I want to talk about all that. Yeah, I had Coach Jack Runkle on. Great guy, great goalie, great guy. He's
yeah,
awesome. He's awesome.
yeah, shout out to the goalie workshop too.
Yeah,
Quick one. He's setting up in Long Island. So if you're a Long Island based goalie, give him a shout. He's the best of the best. So
there you go. There you go. Well, I'll link up to that for sure when this comes out.
yeah,
So kind of going back to like you learning the position. I mean, I imagine, most goalies when they start out, like kind of have no idea what they're doing. You're just kind of standing in there. You're maybe a little bit afraid of the ball. I mean, how did you go about kind of learning how to make saves?
yeah. So I was kind of lucky where growing up, I started out playing hockey goalie. So I kind of had that, move into the ball, eye hand coordination. I had like the beginning of that. So that was really lucky of me. But yeah, it's a lot of reps, and I say this to a lot of goalies that I train like around here. Like the first like 1 to 2 years is gonna suck. Like it's not gonna, like you're gonna have ups and downs, but like it's gonna be a lot more downs than ups. And it's just kind of getting like the amount of like getting the most reps possible, just sticking through it, keeping a positive attitude.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing for me, and the biggest thing I think for every goalie growing up, you know what I mean, is
Yeah.
like moving to the ball and making the save and getting your hands there will come with time. But as long as you're kind of sticking with it and getting reps constantly, and you know what I mean, watching other goalies, like I was saying earlier, like the movements will come to you, and eventually those will be muscle memory, and it's more of just maintaining, and you know what I mean. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
long process being able to kind of like master goalie, or kind of be proficient in it. But I
Yeah.
mean, it pays off in the end. It's like I said earlier. I mean, it's just so much patience and so many reps over and over again. I
Yeah,
mean, you
you
can talk
got
about
to
this.
You got to have patience. You got to have patience. I mean, it's just like any sport. Like, I mean, when you first snowboard or you first surf, like you spend your first day just falling on your butt the entire time, right?
Yeah,
But then like you learn it. As long as you can stick through that phase, then you like learn it, and it becomes really fun.
yeah. I mean, you can see it too. Like, I mean, I work with a club team around here called Blackhawk Lacrosse, just working with the goalies and stuff. I mean, you can see it in like a goalie's face when they're absolutely terrified of the ball and just do not
Yeah.
want it. So I mean, I try and stress it as much as possible. I mean, it's gonna suck, but I mean, in the long run, if this is what you really want to do, like this is what you have to do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool. Kind of talking about your style a little bit. If you were an ice hockey goalie, I mean, ice hockey goalies really, when I mean, the style of play, like you come out and challenge a shooter. You play a little bit of
Yeah.
a higher arc. Did you bring that into lacrosse, or what's kind of your style of lacrosse goalie?
Yeah, so at first I definitely did. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of all I knew was just like
Right.
angles and quick hands. So that's for the first couple of years. That's what all I would just rely on, is just being in the right place, and hopefully I get like my stick on it, or hopefully I get something on it. But as like I got used to the position more and started playing like better players, better shots, like I started to understand myself more as a goalie. And that's when I kind of started adjusting my arc. So nowadays I play more back, like on the arc, just or on the goal line, just giving myself more time to see
Mm-hmm.
the ball, because I know I'm someone that if I see the ball, then I have a better chance of getting it. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
I mean, it was kind of cool just being able to get to that point where I'm just like, okay, this is what I have to do. Like someone might do something differently, but obviously everyone's different. So yeah, I mean, at first I definitely played like a hockey goalie and kind of brought that stuff in. But I mean, like I said, as I got more proficient, that's when I kind of adjusted to my liking, and
Yeah.
yeah, went from there.
Awesome. And I mean, you're a pretty tall goalie, right? Like I think the program has you at like 6'3". I don't know if that I inflated my height a little bit on the program. I
Yeah,
don't know if you do that.
but yeah, I definitely wore the Nikes that one. So
Yeah, there you go. There
a
you
couple
go.
of,
I got with my cleats on. Were
yeah.
you always that tall, or did you kind of hit a growth spurt and kind of change your style?
Yeah, no. So I've always been pretty tall. I mean, I think I definitely hit growth spurt around like freshman or sophomore year. But I've never really, yeah, like now that you say that, though, I've never really kind of noticed a change like in my height. Like I mean, I've always been pretty tall, like I said, so I've kind of just
Hmm.
been going with the flow. every year. And it wasn't until I'd probably say like my senior year to like for our freshman year of college where I kind of started to adjust to kind of people kind of realizing my size and then shooting based on that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
whether that's like getting lower, or staying higher, so I can get, you know what I mean, like bait them a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely wasn't until the recent years that I started to kind of like adjust for my height. But honestly, I wouldn't want it any other way. Just being able to play like the different angles and the different, you know what I mean? Like I just said, like staying low, staying high, just being able to play with that a little is something I use to my advantage. And I mean, I absolutely love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Who do you in high school, like what were some of the goalies that you really looked up to and kind of learned from? You mentioned watching, it might even be today. You mentioned watching a bunch of the save edits that I did, but who's some
Yeah.
goalies you really like watching?
Yeah. I mean, there's a ton of them. It's kind of tough just because there's so many. Like, I was a really big highlight video guy in high school, so I would just look up lacrosse goalie highlights and just watch like the first like 10 every single time.
Mm-hmm.
But I would definitely have to say my top two are probably Dylan Ward and John Galloway.
Yeah.
And then Matt DeLuca too, just for being a tall goalie. He knows exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
I mean, we have similar stances and stuff, so it's cool to see someone like him kind of make it to the top. But Dylan Ward and John Galloway are just, I mean, some of my absolute favorites. John or Galloway, just because, I mean, he's so acrobatic in net, and the way he kind of just freestyles the position and kind of feels out the game is absolutely unreal. And then lastly, his just intensity first and foremost.
Yeah.
I mean, he's so intense when he plays the position. He kind of just feels the game, and you can feel him throughout the game too, just making his mark, making his impact. And I mean, that's exactly what I want in myself. And I mean, Eddie Goalie is just, you know what I mean, have that fire and you be amped up, be ready to go. And then Dylan Ward, just because he makes every save look easy. I've never seen a goalie move so fast and look so slow at the same time. And I absolutely love watching him play. So yeah, I mean, those are probably my top two growing up. But I mean, there's countless goalies that I've watched and look up to.
Yeah. That's such an interesting quote. I've never seen a goalie move so fast and yet look so slow. And that's exactly what you want. Like you want this controlled explosion, you know, where it looks like you're doing it effortlessly, but really you're just exploding as fast as you can to that ball.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome. Well, cool. So then, you know, you kind of bounce around to a couple different high schools, as you told me. And that's got to be a challenge. I mean, both, you know, as a young kid, like it's tough, like going into a new environment, like switching schools, period. Like that's kind of a tough thing. But then now you're kind of coming into a new group of guys. Like, how do you approach that as a leader, as, you know, someone who wants to be like a good goalie? Like, how do you come into a new set of guys and act?
Yeah. I mean, you're right too. It's definitely tough, especially in high school too. Once you have already had like a group of friends like situated or kind of you're in your spot already. But I mean, going into Salisbury after my first sophomore year, I was so pumped. I was watching like videos of the campus. You know what I mean? I was like, this could be sick. Like watching all these like pop up videos of the lacrosse team. So I was super excited. And once I got there too, I was lucky enough where I had. So Dylan Solzbeck was the starter there when I got there my sophomore year. So he was a senior going to Penn State, and I mean having him in front of me was unreal. Just having someone I can look up to, just kind of watch what he did, how he acted with the team. You know what I mean? Was huge to have a leader like that. And then also like everyone at Salisbury was so cool. You know what I mean? I met some of the best friends like I'll ever have. Just being able to hang out. I mean, like I said, it was an all guys school. So you got super close to everyone at the school, just hanging out every night. And then also playing like really good lacrosse too. That was the first time where I was able to kind of play a high level intensity of lacrosse every single day of the week. You know what I mean? So that's the first time where I kind of buckled down and really took it seriously. But yeah, I mean, it's at Salisbury, they have, I think it's 6 a.m. like running I forget when we did it. It was like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in the gym. It was just like 300s back and forth. And that was like the first time I've ever like really like woken up and like worked out in the morning. So I remember the first like week I did that. I was like, there's absolutely no way that I can do this for the whole entire winter. And then yeah, next thing you know, I'm going through them. So that was pretty fun too. Just a lot of cool experiences like that. We've kind of just grown up and getting ready for college. And also just in California too, going to Connecticut. I think I think I showed up with just like sneakers and a sweatshirt, and then next thing you know, it's like snowing, and I like called my parents and I was like, "You need to send me a jacket and boots as soon as possible."
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right. Man, it reminds me of the story I heard of Marshawn Lynch showing up in Buffalo when he got drafted because he's from Oakland, you know,
yeah, exactly.
and so he's like, man, I never seen snow before. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah,
what
it was
about?
funny because I had my Converse on, and my first dorm was like up on a hill. So the first day I'm like sliding down like the hill, and I was like, "Where am I?" Like middle of nowhere, Connecticut, snowing out. Like
Yeah,
it was a really good experience. But
yeah, that's interesting. What about like like California guys and East Coast guys? Like definitely a different vibe going on. You know what I mean? Like, how did you like feel that at all? Did you say like, wow, I really need to up my intensity, or did you kind of like, this is who I am? I don't even know if that question makes sense.
no, no, it does
Yeah,
though. Yeah, no, that's a good question. But yeah, I mean, like first and foremost, everyone just assumes you surf. So
totally.
I took that as an opportunity to just add another hobby to my resume. So I think everyone thinks I surf now, which I'll take. Um, and then, but yeah, I mean, I think the biggest jump in intensity was on the lacrosse field. I mean, plain and simple. I'd say in California, I mean, there's probably two kids in high school that can play. I had every high school team that can play like top, like Division One lacrosse. So there was really no kind of like competing and challenging each other for a spot. Everyone kind of knew their place. And then the
Hmm.
second I got to Salisbury, I think we had 22 Division One commits. You know what I mean? Everyone's fighting for a spot just to make
Wow.
the varsity team.
Yeah.
And it's just like in your face, like this is like this is reality. You know what I mean? You either stick with us or you get left behind. So I definitely had to pick up the intensity just with working after practice and kind of sticking with the game and constantly getting better once I got there. Because it's definitely not the same in California, high school wise and just club ball wise and all that stuff. But yeah, it was definitely a big punch in the face when I got there for sure.
Yeah. What would you say to a goalie from, playing at your high school or even before that, like in junior high out in California, who has dreams of playing D1? Because obviously you're right. Like when you're playing amongst all that elite level lacrosse, like it definitely ups your game.
Yeah.
But if you're not around that, what advice would you give to a young goalie in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty plain and simple, just reps, like constantly finding the best shots, the fastest shots, the most shots possible, like nonstop. I mean, that's the only way you're gonna get better. It's just constantly seeing faster shots and just repping like one, let's say, you know what I mean? Like stick side low is getting like you're having tough on that day. Just repping that stick side low shot over and over and over again until it's muscle memory and you know that you can save that with your eyes closed.
Yeah.
I think that's like the biggest thing for me. I mean, I went to obviously Salisbury that year. I mean, I didn't really play that much too with Dylan ahead of me. And then immediately after that year, I went to a couple summer tournaments, and that was the best I've ever played, hands down. You know what I mean? After that year of just having the fastest shots over and over and over again all spring long, just the fact that I was able to kind of experience that and use that to my advantage was so huge. So I mean, any goalie like around here, whether that's moving age groups up or asking adults to shoot on you, just constantly finding that shot to put you better than someone else, to put you over the edge is key for sure.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I've given that advice before too. And
Yeah.
I mean, the lacrosse community is awesome. It's pretty small. So like, if you're in Danville, like DM some guys that go to Cal, get some college level shooters, and they're MCLA, so maybe they're not D1, but whatever. I mean, they're going to be a lot better than what you're used to seeing. And yeah, I mean, hey, you want to go shoot for a half hour on a Saturday? I guarantee you could find someone to do that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's plain and simple. It's just work. I
Yep.
mean, my coach at LIU stresses that Eric Wolf just, I mean, extra work. I mean, I told you I coach his club team too, and we stress the same exact thing. Like, yeah, like you can go to practice, show up at games, whatever. But I mean, the good and the great are gonna be showing up after practice too, and kind of getting that extra work and those extra shots and taking a friend too and going to hit the wall or shoot on the net. So I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And I mean, whether you want it or no. So
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. At what point did you start to consider like playing D1 level lacrosse?
I think right away, honestly, I think that was like, I'm not really sure kind of what kickstarted kind of that one, like that fire we're playing D1 lacrosse. But I mean, I think every kid that grows up loving the sport, like that's the goal. So I mean, that was just me watching college lacrosse on TV, which was so cool to me. I mean, in middle school, being able to watch like a Hopkins game on ESPNU, like I thought that was unreal. And then just obviously the media on YouTube and everything, watching like these unreal players and highlights and stuff. Just, I mean, I absolutely fell in love with the game. And then yeah, I mean, that's the highest level too. Obviously, the PLL and NLL, but I mean, growing up, that was the highest level. So being able to kind of do something like that in a sport is super rare. And yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And so you just finished your sophomore year. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
correct.
you probably did the recruiting process, I don't know, a couple of years ago, but what was that like for you and how did you end up at LIU?
Yeah. So mine was a little different too. Obviously, I did the repeat year, so I reclassed from 2018 to the 2019 graduating class. And then I originally committed to University of Vermont the beginning of my first year at Salisbury, so my sophomore year. And yeah, I absolutely loved it there. I mean, Burlington's a beautiful place. Chris Fives, who's the coach there, is an unreal guy. And as you can tell from this past year, like the program is up and coming and constantly competitive. Yeah, so I was going there for up until my senior year, and that's just when I made the switch to LIU. Just because it was a better opportunity, I felt like for me. Obviously, an unreal coaching staff, and then the ability to kind of walk right into a starting competition was I couldn't pass up, honestly, for me. Just to be able to play last year, I thought was unreal. Just learning so much from the older guys and from the games and the coaches and stuff. I mean, I absolutely loved it. So I'm happy where I ended up. Obviously, Long Island's a much different place in California. I say this to a ton of people. I think I had a panic attack the first time I drove there. But honestly, I absolutely love it. Right next to the city too.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a good spot.
Awesome. You mentioned repeating a year of high school. What was the thought process behind that?
Yeah, so I mean, I think a ton of people are starting to do this more and more too, just with the private school and the boarding schools that are available. But I mean, personally, for me, it was just kind of like take that extra year, mature more, maybe improve my GPA a little bit, obviously improve lacrosse, and then first and foremost, just give myself more opportunities too. I feel like there's a little more in the class below me. But yeah, that's pretty much. I mean, it was pretty simple.
Yep.
It was also just a good opportunity too. Like I was really in no rush to graduate.
Yeah.
So yeah, just having that extra year was just nice. Kind of slow down a little bit, take a deep breath, and be able to work on yourself, school, and obviously lacrosse in that extra year.
Yeah, it probably would have helped me too. I was such a late bloomer, in terms of just like growing. Like wrestling was my main sport in high school, and my sophomore year I wrestled 103. Not
Oh
cutting
no.
weight, not cutting weight. Like that's just how big I was. So
Wow.
I'm now 160. So or 165. So I filled out a little bit, but that might have been
All
good
right,
for me.
yeah.
There you go. So was Coach Runkle kind of involved in the recruiting process, and what kind of conversations were you guys having prior to you committing there?
Yeah. So he wasn't hired when I first
Got it.
committed. So I committed December of my senior year. So I was the last commit in that class for LIU, and then he was hired, I think in June or July. So the second I found out that he was going there, like obviously I was so pumped. And like I said earlier, like I mean, Ruckle obviously knows what he's doing when it comes to drills, and just what to put a goalie through to make sure he's warm and what kind of shots they need to see. But I mean, the biggest thing, which I haven't had from a goalie coach ever in my life, is just kind of someone there on the sideline, just in my ear. You know what I mean? Constantly kind of keeping me grounded. I mean, keeping my head straight. I think the biggest thing for a goalie for me is more mentally than physically, honestly. So
Yeah.
just kind of keep my head in the right space and all that stuff. But yeah, having Ruckle there was I was so pumped up to go into my freshman year when I found out he was hired.
Yeah. Well, elite goalie out of Loyola. I've broken down some of his clips, and he's just a master. Not only at making saves, but just the communication. Like he's just so
Yeah.
like he seems like the kind of guy defenses want to play for because he brings some of that Galloway intensity that we were talking about earlier, and I love that.
Yeah, I mean, just at our practice last year and the year before, I mean, he is an absolute force. I mean, the guy doesn't even need a megaphone. Like he's got it in his voice. So you can constantly hear him yelling. He's all over all the guys constantly, and we absolutely love it. So I mean, he's not coming back next year, which is heartbreaking. But I mean, he's on the bigger and better things. And I mean, I was just happy I got to spend those 2 years with him. So
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned he was kind of there to keep you grounded. What do those conversations look like? Is it just a simple like, hey, like get the next one, like just little comments, or are you guys having like more in-depth conversations?
yeah. So I think the biggest thing that he's taught me through the couple of years is so I mean when you're playing goalie, you're going 1,000 miles an hour. You know what I mean? Things are coming at you, different parts are moving, you're controlling the defense, making the save, whatever. But I mean, what he stressed, and I've never really kind of worked on before, is just doing everything you can in your head to just slow everything down. You know what I mean? Like kind of taking that deep breath, like watching the ball, just focusing on one thing at a time. Because I was definitely someone that when I was in net, like I was firing. You know what I mean? If I make a save, I'm like pump faking, running around the net, like I'm screaming at everyone. So it was kind of him to bring me in and just be like, take a deep breath. You know what I mean? Like slow down the game, slow down the shots, take your 4 seconds in the crease, find the open man. You know what I mean? Just like small stuff like that. Just be like, everything's all good. Like if I'm getting scored, like I get 3 in a row, like I'm jumping around. You know what I mean? I'm yelling,
Yeah.
I'm like this, that. And so it's at that point where I can just be like, all right, I just got 3 on, deep breath, like tap my head twice, and we're back in it. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
it's just having someone there constantly, just like watching over you and just making sure you're not slipping, was so huge. And I've learned more about the position in these past 2 years than I think I've had in like 10 years that I've been playing. So
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, having him there was just, I mean, unreal.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. What a benefit to have such a great coach. I mean, if only for 2 years. It's awesome.
Yeah, no,
Um,
definitely.
did he, you mentioned, when you got there, you're now back sort of playing a flatter arc. Is there any other like techniques that you changed? I saw one picture and it's a still picture. So I don't know if it tells the whole story, but it looks like your hands are a little bit closer together.
Yeah, no, that's actually something like I had a feeling you were gonna say something about that. But yeah, that's something that every time I went to like a goalie camp growing up or whatever, I mean, obviously goalie Smith, but every time I work with them, that's something they always get on me about. But yeah, I mean, when I stand, I have my hands like closer together than someone normally would, or kind of like what the textbook like goalie technique is.
Right.
And that's just something I'm more comfortable with. You know what I mean? Just having my hands closer, I feel like in my head, like I can shoot the ball faster. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like what I was saying earlier, just kind of finding the position. You know what I mean? Like just
Right.
working through like what works for you, what doesn't. And I mean, for me, I feel like I can be faster with my hands closer together. Um, but that's like, yeah, like I said, that's something that I mean I've tried different ways of holding, and I found that it's most comfortable for me.
Yeah.
But another thing too is just my stance, and that's something that me and Coach Runkle worked a ton on. It's just how I stand in the net. So I mean, obviously, like I said, being a tall goalie, there's a lot of different options for me.
Right.
And I was kind of catching myself dipping a lot just to kind of favor that low shot. So being able to kind of just fight off that tendency to dip and just being still and waiting for the ball was another big thing that I had to work on. And just being tall in that, using my size to my advantage. Obviously, you've seen clips of Runkle where he could just, you know what I mean. He could just use his size to his advantage, and he says to himself like the majority of his saves are made with his body. So kind of being in the right position is so key.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely something I took in for sure, and kind of stress the goalies I teach now is just how important your positioning is in the net and just putting yourself in the right place to make the save as easy as possible. So I mean, you had countless amount of things you had to tell me, but I mean, definitely my stance, positioning, and all that stuff were definitely key.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my philosophies is there's no like one way to play this position. And, I always encourage goalies to try out different things. And as long as they're not like super unathletic, like if your hands were like together touching, like that's going to be tough to get, but they're not. I mean, there's like a good glove and a half space closer than what most goalies do, but still like, it works for you. And perfect. Like I think a
Yeah,
lot of young goalies listening to this should experiment a little bit more. And then you mentioned you're a tall goalie, so you got a little bit of a wider base in your stand. Like I couldn't do that. I'm 5'8", so like I get a wide base, and like there's just way too much goal. Like I got to be in a different stance. That works for me. So a lot of different ways to play this position.
yeah, definitely.
Um, Awesome. So, I mean, congratulations on an amazing year at LIU. I mean, that was unbelievable. It's the only shame is I don't know where I can watch NEC games. I was trying to find a bunch of games to do a Will Mark save edit, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'll send you. I think you can watch them on. I think it's like NEC front row. So I'll
Okay.
send you a link and we'll get back on.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Send me a link on that. Um, because yeah, I remember like I tried to follow college. I mean, this is what I do for a living, right? I coach and I mean, I love watching lacrosse and try to follow all the goalies as I can. And it came out Will Mark, mid-season All-American. I'm like, Will Mark, like, how come I've never seen this guy? This is all, but, 17 saves a game averaging, and then a 30 save game at Bryant. Unbelievable. Were you seeing the ball really well that day, or is it just like they were just firing a ton of shots?
yeah. I mean, first of all, Brian took 77 shots, which should be illegal. But yeah, no, I knew it was going to be a bloodbath. I knew it was going to be a tight game. So obviously, I mean, the biggest thing for me before a game is just kind of getting in the right headspace. So, I mean, getting pumped up before a game, like I said, like bring the intensity. Like I definitely, like it's like I spent like probably 30 minutes before a game, kind of just like thinking and just like blasting music and getting fired up. But yeah, before that game, I mean, I was just like you said, I was seeing the ball well, and like I was just getting a ton of shots, like a ton of opportunities to make saves. And then, but at the same time, I was also, like I said, letting in a ton of goals. And I think 20 goals is the most I've ever let in as a goalie. And so just from going from making like 3 like crazy saves, like making 15 saves, woohoo, to also letting in 5 goals, which is such a roller coaster of emotions. So that was, I mean, I've never been in a game like that in my whole entire life. But kind of just fighting those emotions and being able to like get back in the net and then make the next like couple saves was really tough. But I feel like I got better as a person and lacrosse goalie during that game. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, I've never experienced anything like that. I've never seen that many shots in a game in my whole entire life. But I mean, I was rolling with the punches. I was doing my best to keep everyone kind of grounded together. I mean, it's tough when you can't get the ball on offense, you make a save or a stop on defense. But I mean, it was a fun game in the end. It was like 2017. So I mean, I wouldn't have it the other way. So
Awesome. How do you have like a post goal routine, or how do you go about, getting back into the game when you give up a goal?
yeah, so I mean, that's something I kind of added in this year is just talking with Ron, like kind of getting a little, good with the word to use it, but just a little thing I can use to kind of reset myself, whether that's like walking around the net, doing whatever. For me, it's just tapping my helmet twice. You know what I mean? Like 2 tap on the helmet. I'm absolutely like everything in my head's gone, reset, like next shot. So yeah, we practiced that a ton. Just before practice, we'd all just get in a circle and just meditate, stand there for a minute and a half. So just little things like that to kind of reset yourself. We just practiced a ton this year.
Nice.
So that was definitely huge. Just having in my head, convincing myself, you know what I mean? Like 2 tap on the head, like new shot, new game. So that was the biggest thing for me. Just, yeah.
Yeah, love it. And then you mentioned sort of your pregame routine, which is, kind of just, doing a lot of thinking yourself. I mean, some might call it meditating, but listening to, like energetic music. What any songs I should put on my playlist, by the way, my goalie playlist? What's your go-to jam?
Yeah, I mean, ever since I went to New York, I mean, my pregame and kind of just my overall music taste has completely changed. So pregame has transitioned from Eminem to Jay-Z, which I feel like is just a must if you're that close to New York City.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I mean, there's a ton of like kind of the New York like local rappers and artists and stuff that everyone likes. So I mean, I'm definitely listening to all that. But I mean, when it comes to game time, like I love the old school. You know what I mean? Just like the old Eminem, old Jay-Z, throwing some Kanye in there, Power, if I really want to get it going. But I mean, I just absolutely blast music and just I get so psyched up before a game.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I mean, I'm getting pumped up just thinking about it, honestly.
Yeah,
But,
and that was my strategy too. I mean, I threw the headphones in. I was out at the field like early, just throwing around with the shorty, just listening to tunes. It was that '90s punk rock for me. But everyone's got their jam. Maybe later you could send me some of those up and coming New York artists. We'll get them discovered here on the Lax Goalie Rap podcast.
Yeah.
It's like my career was going nowhere. Then I got mentioned on a goalie podcast. Bam.
You're welcome. They owe me then. Yeah, I better be backstage.
Found my niche.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. How about like, have you ever gone through an extended slump?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this year was probably the biggest slump that I ever felt like I was in. And it went up until our first game against Sacred Heart. And I remember probably coming after, I want to be at like my peak play after winter break. So my goal is to kind of like work my way through fall, constantly like getting more and more shots as I go through fall to like kind of not overdo it and just stay like healthy and not too sore and stuff. And then my peak I want to be after winter break. So I came back from winter break last year and I was not playing well. And that messed me up so much because in my head, I'm like, I have to like by winter break, like after winter break, I have to be good. You know what I mean? So when I wasn't up to where I thought I was going to be after winter break, I feel like that kind of just got my mojo a little. And so that month and a half going up to that first game, Sacred Heart, I was just completely in my head. You know what I mean? Like I'm missing this shot, I'm missing this save. I gotta do this with my stance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I sat down with Coach Runkle and then also Coach Wolf too, where they were just like, hey, like, you know what I mean? Like you don't have a problem until you tell yourself you have a problem. And I was like, it's like, wow, like that's actually, that's so simple, but like so true at the same time. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it wasn't until when I like kind of got out of my head and was like, okay, maybe it isn't, you know what I mean, this specific thing. And it's more of just me thinking about it too much, where I was kind of able to just get back in the groove. And I mean, the night up until the day of that Sacred Heart game, I was like freaking out. I was like, what if I don't play well? Like, what if I like this slump kind of like falls through? And then the second the game started against Sacred Heart, I just kind of just locked in, you know what I mean? And the game slowed down. And after that first save, I was like, it's gonna be a sick season. So no, but you know what I mean? Like when you just see
awesome. You're like, bam, this is gonna be a 6th season. I'm back.
Yeah. I was seeing the ball well. I mean, you probably know this as a goalie too, when you kind of get into that groove where the game just kind of slows down. You know what I mean? You're just like, I don't know. I can't really explain it. But I mean, you definitely know, and that feeling's awesome when you're kind of just all over the ball and like in your head, you're like, no one can score on me. So yeah.
Yeah, I do know. Unfortunately, not as much as I would like to say I know, but I mean, I've had some of those games where like, I didn't even realize like I was playing well, to be honest. And at the end of the game, be like, game ball goes to Damon. Like, oh man, everyone's like, dude, you play, yeah, such a good game. And you're just in the flow, you're in the moment. And I think that's when goalies play the best. It's like when you start thinking in your head about like, oh man, like I'm not where I should be, right? I'm not playing as well as I need. What happens if this, right? That is when you start overthinking things and you're just not loose and relaxed.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I can tell when I'm playing well and when I'm playing bad, because in my head, I'll either be like, when the ball's on offense, I'll either be like, oh, please stay on offense, like, please don't come back to defense. Or if I'm like feeling it, I'm like let's go, like come back, you know what I mean? Give me the shot. So I can feel it in my head. Like I can tell when you know what I mean? When I'm like feeling like saving the ball and when I'm kind of like a little slow. So
yeah, that's an interesting litmus test for goalies. You know, in terms of like the mental game, it's like, let's say there's an overtime game. Like, are you thinking like, man, I hope we win this face off, go down and score? Yeah. Or are you thinking, let's go, like, give me the opportunity to make a stop, then I'll outlet it, then we'll score. It's kind of like, what mindset are you coming in with? And obviously the second one's a lot better for goalies.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, you want to be, at the end of the day, you want to be the guy with the ball in your stick. Obviously, you're not scoring the goal, but like, you want to in your head to want that last save. You know what I mean? You want to save the game.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a huge mental, a huge exercise in the mental game is just to be really careful what stories like you're telling yourself in your head. Kind of like Runk told you, like, hey, like you're good, right? Like stop telling yourself that you're not good, because that's not even true. You know, so many young goalies tell these, like, create these stories in their head that's not even true. And that hurts them. So big mental lesson right there. What other mental lessons come to mind? Like when you think of mental toughness, is there anything else that lessons that you've learned along the way, or some things that how you approach the mental game?
Yeah, I mean, other than that one, which I think is probably
Yeah.
the biggest step to being a good goalie, is just, you know what I mean, like getting off your butt. It's just, you know what I mean, just kind of like put in the work. Like it's tough to, like, you know what I mean, like go get the extra reps, like go to the gym, you know what I mean. But I mean, it's that mental battle where you can just, like, I can just do it, like whatever, you know what I mean. It's that easy to get up and go outside and play wall ball. But I mean, for me, who's someone that's naturally naturally lazy, I guess, or someone that's naturally kind of just putting things off, just to kind of fight that and be like, you know what I mean? Like, I want this, like, this is something I want to work for and be the best at. And you know what I mean? I'm constantly still have to fight that every day. Just kind of that want, like, I could just, you know what I mean, just watch a movie, or I could just go hang out with friends. But just being able to kind of take control of yourself and your life is something that's tough. But I mean, I'm still working on it to this day, and I mean, it's going to pay off in the long run.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, the mental game is not something where, like, you hear one lesson and you're like, cool, I got it. I mean, it's something you work on like your entire life. You know what I mean? Like, and you always get tested. And it's just like, can you stack more wins than losses, right?
Yeah,
So,
definitely. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's no easy task, and yeah, but I mean, it's the same thing as getting shots and stuff. Like, you just gotta keep working at it and keep, like,
yeah.
giving yourself in that position where you have to make that decision, or have to, you know, like, kind of control your reaction to something. Or
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing you mentioned there that I really liked is like, do I really want this? Like, you have to have this connection to, like, the why. Like, why am I here doing it? Because it's gonna suck, right? Like, you don't want to get up at 6 a.m. and run. Sometimes you don't want to take shots. But like, if you have that strong connection to, like, yeah, this is something I really want. Like, I want to be a D1 athlete. I want to be an All-American, whatever. Then that, like, drives you. So I think having that deep connection to the why is very important.
definitely, yeah.
Awesome. So you mentioned you're coaching now out in the Bay Area. What's your style of coaching? Like, let's say there's a a brand new goalie. I think someone in my Facebook group met you, by the way, and she was really excited. But anyway, so, like, you got a brand new goalie, doesn't know much. Like, how do you go about working with them?
Yeah. So it's kind of different. I mean, obviously, like we talked about earlier, every goalie is gonna have a different kind of style and uh, form and stance and all that stuff. So I mean, first and foremost, you got to get to know the goalie a little, see if, you know what I mean, like, kind of test, like, their boundaries with different shots and different angles. You know what I mean, whether they're kind of past the point of being scared of the ball a little. And so yeah, after you get to know the goalie, you can kind of customize, whether it's like a lesson, like practice, whatever, to them. But the biggest thing for me is kind of movement. You know what I mean? Is being fluid and constantly moving. And you know what I mean? Like, goalie isn't just, like, a lot of kids just think they're gonna come, like, like, plant themselves in the middle of the net and get a shot from the center of the cage from 10 yards out for 45 minutes. Like, that's gonna be practice, or that's gonna be like a lesson or whatever. So the biggest thing I want them to realize, like, if you're playing a game and, like, it's like a real game, like, it's fast paced, like, you're constantly moving, the ball is constantly moving. You're never just gonna get a shot, you know what I mean? Like, nice and easy from the top of the cage. So the fact that, you know what I mean, then that starts with steps, like stepping to the ball, reacting to the ball, kind of following the ball in the different positions, like, throughout the arc. So that's the biggest thing I kind of want to stress at first. So that's kind of where I start. You know what I mean? I start with the steps, just going, like, you know what I mean, like, going stick side first over and over again, and off stick, like, hip, off stick low, over and over again. And then into, like, and that's where I kind of move into the arc too. So I'll be like, you know what I mean, we'll be in one position, kind of work on those same saves in that position, and then the next position, you know what I mean? Because I know I'm kind of, like, rambling right now, but I mean,
No, that's
I
good.
kind of,
All good.
yeah. But I think the biggest thing, like, for me, like, as I work and as I train other goals, is just that muscle memory. So if you're putting them in different scenarios where they're making that one save, when they do have to make that save in a couple of years or a couple of days, a couple of weeks, like, they'll have the exact muscle memory and know exactly what to do when that shot comes. So for me, like, when I'm working, and I'll just be like, we'll do down the alley on the left, bottom right today. You know what I mean? And I'll just absolutely fire that spot over and over and over again until I know, like I said earlier, I can make that save with my eyes closed. And then the next day I'll do, you know what I mean, like, in the middle off stick hip, and just absolutely work that spot until I can make that save, like, flawlessly. So I think just having that muscle memory and like kind of obtaining that and getting that through work is the biggest thing for goalie.
Yeah.
Yeah, but kind of, yeah, just introducing them position, the different steps, the different stances is the biggest thing for a new goalie. I just went off right there.
No, I love it. I love it. Yeah, that's great. One thing that came to mind is, yeah, when you watch those save edits, like one things I love to do is not even like watch the ball. You're just watching the goalie. And like, yeah, I mean, they're moving on the arc. They're moving on the arc. The shot comes, they like jump to like a little, I don't even know what it's called. Galloway calls it the hop, where you kind of just
Yeah,
kind of like reset your weight. You know what I mean? You just kind of like jump into your stance, reset your weight. And so you're ready to explode in either direction. I
yeah,
really like that technique because I played tennis and it kind of reminded me of a split step. You know, like in tennis, you kind of jump up and split step and then go. So, but there's a lot of movement to your point. Elite goalies move quite a bit on the arc, and you're always trying to be in the right position, but then also
yeah.
be set and balanced when the shot comes.
Yeah, it's kind of just finding that middle between obviously movement and then just being still and being a rock when you have to.
Yeah.
But I was playing tennis. I think it was 2 days ago. And we had the ball machine going, and I was like, if I save up enough money, then I'm just gonna buy a portable ball machine and just run that at every lesson I do from now on. Because like you could adjust like the height, like the speed and everything. I was like, this is like too perfect for a goalie.
Okay. Yeah, I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, cool. Will, I'm gonna wish you the best of luck going into your junior year. If you give me that front row link, I'll definitely try and watch as many games as I can. What do you do? Are you doing anything this summer to train? Are you taking some time off, or what's your training regimen like?
Yeah, so right now I'm coaching throughout the week, and then I'm in a it's called the Bay Area Lacrosse League. So it's a little summer league around here. So that's every other week. And then for me right now, it's just kind of maintaining. You know what I mean? Not like going too crazy with the shots. I don't overdo it,
Yeah.
but just getting shots at least once or twice a week to kind of just stay in the groove a little bit, like stay quick, stay moving. And then as like the summer goes on, I'll start to kind of introduce more shooting and different shots and stuff. But yeah, right now it's just kind of maintenance, you know what I mean? Like focusing on little things that I know I need to do, staying in shape, working out. But yeah, nothing crazy right now. But like I said, as like the summer moves on, it gets closer to the season. That's when I'll kind of introduce more shooting and more lacrosse oriented stuff.
Love it. If the youth goalies want to reach out to you, how should they do that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I got my email at willmark11@gmail.com. They can send me a text, 925-999-6823. And then obviously social media, Instagram, I think I'm Will_Mark. And then Twitter is Willmark_1. So there's a couple of options right there. Choose wisely, and hopefully I can connect with some people.
Love it. Will, if you had to leave the goalies out there with a final piece of advice, what would that be?
Yeah, reps over and over again.
Reps.
You just got to grind it out. You know what I mean? It's going to suck. There's going to be times where you don't want to go, but I mean, it's the good ones that are able to kind of stick through it and just get those reps day in and day out. So plain and simple.
Boom. Leave it at that.
Yeah.
Will, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.